Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Mike DeHaan and Dan Austin. From wins, losses, horror stories, and tactics for optimizing your business, Mike and Dan take a real, uncensored deep dive into the ins and outs of running a full-time real estate investment and wholesaling business.
What's going on, guys? On this episode of the Collecting Keys podcast, we have Damon Amato out of Boston, who is, I say, the epitome of starting from sort of a standard place. He used to be an athletic trainer, a nutritionist or coach. I don't know if you're actually like a licensed nutritionist, but you did nutrition coaching, you said. And now you have moved on from that to become a real estate entrepreneur, and you've done everything from, I guess you're currently building high-end spec homes that you sell for multi-million dollars. You have syndications going on. You're doing wholesale. You have dove into real estate full-time. And, you know, I don't know if it's like shiny object syndrome or what, but it seems like you have everything going on. But if it is shiny object syndrome, you're at least seem to be doing well with it. So, Damon, welcome. We're glad to have you, and love to hear about how you've done what you've done.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great to be on your podcast.
Yeah. So, perfect. So a little bit about your background first. I know you said that you started with kind of a, traditional sort of job like so many of us do. You were a strength trainer and a nutrition coach, which I feel like is funny. I feel like that's a very common starting point for a lot of people that do real estate as well. I'm not really sure what that is.
That's where you started, Mike.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
So I've been the head athletic trainer for the largest public high school in Massachusetts for 18 years. And so I started real estate in 2015, I think. For real, I actually built my own house in 2008 also, but I just actually did that from online poker money.
Really?
Back in the day.
Really?
I didn't mention that before. I actually used to play a whole lot of online poker, and I was able to make enough money to buy my wife a car, pay off her college debt, and also buy a lot to build our house that we're in.
That's
Wow, so you made like legit money on that. So is that just luck, or were you actually making fat bets and just sort of compounding that?
So I played mostly back in the heyday of online poker, which is like 2001 to like 2006 maybe. And back in those days, so many people wanted to play poker and everybody was awful. So it was, you did not have to be a very good poker player to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was, I got in with a group of other friends who were actually legitimately really good at poker, and learned from them, and did my own education, and, grew that to be able to play mostly online cash games. I got up to mostly playing 5-10 no limit, which is $1,000 buy-in, and you can play 10 or 12 tables at a time.
Yeah.
So it was pretty easy to win or lose, $7,000 or $10,000 in a day.
Yeah, right. That's crazy.
Amazing. You got a regular old Dan Bilzerian here, whatever his name is. Bilzerian.
Oh, Dan
That's
Bilzerian,
it. We got Damon, Dan Bilzerian. Jay Scott was also a poker player.
He was.
Wow.
Yeah. I know you see it.
Yeah, actually, I didn't even realize I had a really good conversation with another GoBro, Pasha Esfandiari in Atlanta, and I never put it together because they spell their names differently. But his brother is Antonio Esfandiari, who's one of the best poker players.
Oh, really? That's funny.
Yeah. And I didn't realize it because they spell their names differently. So it was interesting to get together. So we had a very long conversation about all the mutual people we know.
That's
amazing. That's funny. There's I don't know. There's certain things that always seem to come up with real estate stuff a lot. I don't know why. So you see a lot of people that were like engineers that went into real estate. So a lot of people that were like, fitness professionals of some kind that get into real estate. And then a lot of real estate professionals are always into gambling. I used to work, I worked for a hard money company here for a while, kind of as we were scaling up our business. And those guys, like they had like a putting green, like in the hallway, and they would walk down and they'd be like, all right, $100, I'm gonna hit this putt right now. Like just all day they would do that. They loved it, That was interesting. But
I'm not I'm actually not a huge gambler,
Yeah.
to be honest. It's kind of weird to say that as a poker player, but in a casino, like I think I've played a slot machine exactly one time.
Yeah. But I mean, that's like suckers gambling though.
Yeah.
Like that's not like poker's a game.
I've played blackjack and craps, but just for fun for like an hour or so, like not trying to really, put too much in it. But yeah, we do things like that. I actually remember when I was 22 or 23, we were in the Bellagio poker room, which was at the time one of the bigger poker rooms in Vegas. And there's like 10 of us that went and hung out for a week. And one of my friends actually did look quite a bit like, I'm dating myself, but Chunk from the Goonies. And we all threw him a $5 chip if he would stand up and
truffle
shuffle. Oh my goodness, nice.
So he did that in the middle of the Bellagio poker.
Oh Jesus!
It was like I would have paid him $100.
Well, it's so funny though. I mean, you're in Vegas. They just like knowing their bats and eye. They're just like, get out of here, asshole! Like you're doing, for your men's weekend or whatever.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's super funny. Yeah, I mean, the gambling. Even with our Christmas party last year, we took our local staff out to the casino and went to the steakhouse for a Christmas party, and we gave them their bonuses in cash, so they could go play in the casino. And I mean, they were very responsible. They could have definitely been, a little bit ham.
They worked for their bonus. I'm definitely irresponsible in a casino. Yeah, I love it. I just love the rush of winning. Losing, not so much, but I tend to lose. So.
Yeah. But no, that's cool. So you were doing that while you were being a strength coach at the high school, but you used that money to, was that kind of like what seed funded your real estate investing career, or were you kind of dabbling all through that period of time?
No. What happened was, at the time I was an employee for a physical therapy clinic. So I had a 401k with an employer match. Wasn't getting paid very well, but I maxed out my match. My wife was a nurse at the time. She was doing the same thing. She was actually the breadwinner at the time. And, quarterly you get these statements from Social Security Administration to say like, in 30 years when you retire, like this is what your likely payment is going to be, which is peanuts, right? So I got that and I, took that to my 401k and I was like, okay, well, if I keep getting paid this and I get, a raise here and there and the market does this, like this is what I'm going to end up with. This is what my monthly income is going to be. And when we retire, it was like, okay, well, it's going to be like $4,600 a month. And then I did another search to see like, okay, well, in 30 years, inflation, cost of living, if we want to live the lifestyle that we like, how much income do we need to be able to do that? And it was like $11,000. So I was like, well, that doesn't work. So I've got to find a new way to do this. And so I actually joined Fortune Builders, which is a real estate education company. They teach you, how to flip houses without any of your own money, which not totally true, especially in the beginning. It is now for me, but that's because I have plenty of experience. But that's how I kind of got into real estate. Wanted to do that so that I could make a better living for myself and my family, be able to travel and do the things that we want to do. So it's more about a freedom of time thing more than anything else.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I'm glad you brought that up. People always plug that now. Like, this is how you can get started investing in real estate with no money. And it's the biggest farce. Like, realistically, if you are not in a position where you can put any money into a real estate business, it's like really you should not be accepting money from anyone else at that point, right? You're going to go and like especially everyone's always like, I got my grandma to take out a HELOC.
Right.
I'm going to go use that to flip houses. You should do that. And then you got to figure out your own life first and get into a position where you can actually make some money to even know how to begin to operate a business. Like learning how to make money is a skill, and you can't expect to just like suddenly have that. You have to sort of go through the process of making like a little bit, and then you can make more, and then you can make more. And I don't know, but I guess it sells courses to people, right?
Yeah.
It sells gurus can sell education and products by spouting nonsense to people. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Or it's like you're teaching to an audience that can't actually take action. Right. So if you don't have money, here's how you get into real estate without money, but then here's all the ways to make money in real estate if you have money. Yeah. It doesn't really align with reality. And we all know that once you're in the business for a while, I guess you could, in an edge case, make money money in real estate with no money, but like it's really hard. You got to have something. You got to have something.
Yeah,
exactly. But cool. So, so that sort of set the path for you. And then what did you originally start with as you got into investing?
So the first deal I ever did came very close to going bankrupt.
Oh shit.
I was, all set up with my entity. I did all the education with Fortune Builders. I was like, okay, I'm ready to go. My now business partner actually had a deal that he was too spread thin for, so he was going to assign it to somebody. And it was a 5-unit condo conversion on a beach, 2 different buildings. Didn't scare me because the numbers are the numbers. It was, I think I bought it for $865 maybe, and I had a budget to renovate of $300,000, and then I was going to sell out all 5 units together for like 1.7, right? So it's a good deal. And I got into it. It was my first deal, so I had to get a hard money loan, and it was a big deal. So I had to bring a significant down payment. I actually borrowed the maximum from mine and my wife's 401k to do this, which I'm not recommending that, by the way. For
We've all been there.
To be clear.
Yeah.
But I was all in on it, right? I wanted to make it work, and I was like, I'm going to make it work. And so my hard money loan was 12% and 5 points, and I didn't realize until a week before the closing that one of the buildings was below the floodplain. So my first payment, holding costs for interest on the loan, taxes, and flood insurance was $31,000.
Seriously?
Yeah. So I had $26,000 in my checking account.
Wow.
Shit.
So yeah, you can imagine. So the first like 3 or 4 draws I got from the lender were used to pay him back with his own money.
Oh man.
During the process, I actually wholesaled 3 properties. So I was working nonstop. I wholesaled 3 properties to make my payments.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I never missed
That
a
is
payment.
amazing.
Really?
Never missed a single payment.
That's insane.
I did the renovation. The most expensive unit I finished first, and actually it was an estate sale, and one of the kids in the estate actually wanted to buy it. So that was my first sale, and that cut my interest payment in half right there. So I was able to survive after that, but I had other problems above that. My contractor lied about several things. One of the buildings was an old 3-unit building that was 100 years old, which means to not trigger FEMA to bring the entire building up to code, you have to get an appraisal on the building, and you're only allowed to use up to 50% of the appraised value of the building to renovate that building. Otherwise, you are required to bring it up to today's code. And to today's code, I would have had to put the building on pilings and lose a unit.
Oh man.
So I definitely would have been bankrupt if I had to do that. But the problem was my contractor didn't know that and saw like, oh, this wall over here has a little bit of mold. Let me take that wall out. And this wall is kind of destroyed already. Let me take that wall out. And when you take out more than 50% of the drywall in the building, you have to gut the building.
Wow.
And so the building inspector, who didn't want to deal with FEMA, thank God, told me, I need a budget for this building that shows that you're spending, the appraised value of the building was $220,000. So I had $110,000 for a budget to tell him I was going to gut renovate a 3-unit condo building.
Wow.
So, I sent him that budget. That was not the real budget. Right. The real budget was not $110,000. The real budget was about $330,000.
Just for the one building.
Yeah.
Just for that one building.
Are you still friends with the guy that brought you this deal? Because he threw you under the bus, bro.
For sure.
Well, the guy who brought me that deal is my
Oh,
business
shit.
partner.
Is that
Mike, like you haven't thrown me a few
So-
shitty deals, right?
I mean,
that's
that
true.
wasn't. I mean,
Okay.
that certainly wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
That was my
Oh, that's
contractor's
Gotcha.
fault.
Okay.
So, at the end of the day, I think I lost somewhere a little bit more than $100,000
On the whole deal,
Wow.
all said and done,
And-
100 grand.
Yeah. So, after that, or even during that, a lot of people would just give up, go back to their W-2, say, this isn't for me. Let me figure out a way to pay out all my debt. And for me, I was like, oh my God, I have to find 2 or 3 more deals to do to make up for this loss.
Wow.
And that's what I did.
Yeah.
I wholesaled more houses. My business partner asked me to do a fix and flip with him in a similar area. We did that. He saw that I was wholesaling a few properties right from MLS, which is, as you guys know, it's not the easiest thing to do. And he went to architecture school at Wentworth in Boston. So he's extremely talented with rendering, zoning code, modeling floor plans, all that kind of stuff. So we found a wholesale deal where it was definitely a good deal, but it was hard even for an investor to really see what the end product could look like and what the value would be at the end. So I got the deal under agreement. My partner did a 3D rendering of the house. He did floor plans. He did a budget. We laid it up perfectly. And we sold that deal, and we're like, wow, this is we made some good money on that. Let's keep doing this. And it went from there to building a spec house, to building more spec houses, to doing land development. So it's just kind of grown organically from
Wow.
there.
That's a fascinating story because it's like a little start, like a little bug, and then it grew into which the first start too sounds like it was so terrible. I don't know that I've heard too many people coming back from that, but it was just like this little bug that started slowly, and now you're talking about being a real estate developer. That's pretty incredible. And what was the span of time? Is that you said 2015? Is that when you actually the first year you lost money on this deal? Was that when that happened? Wow,
Right.
So 7 years. It's a pretty short time period as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that I tell that story often, mostly because a lot of people just think that this is just you just do a deal and tons and tons of money just flows in. It's easy as that. And I do that because in Fortune Builders, very few people really dive in and continue doing it and actually do well. And I mention that because a lot of times one of the first questions people ask me is what advice would you give to someone who's starting out, wants to get into this, wants to do it, but they don't know what they don't know. And I say, if you're not financially, emotionally, and mentally prepared for a $50,000 loss on a single project, then don't bother.
Yeah.
Because that can happen, and that can happen kind of easily.
Yeah, like much easier than
Very
you
easy.
think, right? And the problem is, recently, especially the last couple of years, people have been able to make money by doing anything just because the market was going up so fast. But that's not the reality.
Part of the problem since, basically 2012 up until now, if you're alive 6 months later, you made money.
Yeah, there's been growth. Yep.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Well,
yeah, I mean, you're completely right, though. Just taking action is so important. And that's something that we always tell new investors as well, and that we really push on people that are in our instant investor program. We have a coaching program, and so many people, they tread right on the line, and they're like, well, I'm not ready to do this. I don't know how to do this. It's you just got to get after it and figure it out. Mm-hmm. The first house that I ever flipped, I had a money partner on it that I met at the local meetup, and we were splitting it 50-50. So I did a lot of the hustle, organizing contractors, just doing all the BS. It took me 5 months from when we bought it to when we sold it, and I made $4,200. And I was stoked because I was certain I was going to lose my ass halfway through it, especially when we bought it and we hadn't done the full inspections, and the place had been abandoned for 3 years, and we turned on the water and all of the pipes exploded in the entire house. There was literally water cascading down the stairs. And I was like, what does this mean? I didn't even know that could happen because I was so unversed in real estate.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
But I think the commonality is like the stick with itness, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just stuck with it because that was not a good deal. You've had several deals for you, Mike, that weren't like the home runs, and you just stuck with it. And one thing I do want to mention about Damon too, which I found incredible, is why you were getting your ass handed to you on that project. You were still doing other things. You said you did 3 wholesale deals, and that's how you were paying your debt servicing. It's so easy and very common, especially for newer investors, to get sucked in. They get a deal, and that's all they focus on. They stop marketing. They stop looking for other projects, whatever their other side hustles are. They're just done, and they're only on that project. And there's like this sunk cost bias, like for their time. Like if I give it more time, I'll make money. It's like, well, that's not the case. And you were able to keep yourself afloat by doing that. And I always think about a friend of mine that I know. He gets a house under contract. He does all the work. He flips it 100%. He doesn't even look for another deal until he's got that one on the MLS. It's like, well, that's like the worst time to be looking for another deal. Mm-hmm. You need to be doing that consistently and always have your eye out there. So I think that was also probably attributed a lot to your success, was being able to keep other operations running.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we do, we actually, since 2016, I actually have not spent a dime on marketing.
Wow.
So a lot of our deals are, kind of call ourselves ambulance chasers, because we tend to look at, zoning board meetings or planning board meetings and see these developments that guys are trying to permit, and they're not that good at doing the permitting. We're really good at doing the permitting. Mm-hmm. And when they fail and they lose their contract, then we kind of jump into it with the seller with a better price because it just failed. Mm-hmm. And we show them that we can get it done. And we've never had a permitting deal where we didn't get something that was worth buying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we do. So a lot of the stuff that we find is stuff that's actually pretty stale on MLS, or we have a lot of realtors that bring us off market or pre-market properties because they know we can execute, we can close.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a great way to go, cool. Especially you can build those connections. So even when you were going through that initial one and you're doing all the wholesale stuff, how did you learn how to do that? Was like that knowledge from your business partner at the time? Did you have like a mentor? Did you just talk to other investors?
No, I have not had any true mentor in real estate, which, I kind of wish I did. Probably would have helped me quite a bit. But I treat every person who's more experienced than I am as a mentor, because everybody I talk to has some kind of tidbit of information that is something that either I didn't know or I could do better.
Yeah.
Because certainly, one of the things I think you have to be true to yourself about is that I am not perfect. Right. I am not the best at this. I could always be better. One thing that my mother actually instilled in me at all times is that, because I played, at high school, I played football, basketball, and baseball. In college, I played football and baseball. And she always reminded me, no matter how good you are, someone else is better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, true. That's very true in everything, and even if they're not better at even if you are like the best at the one thing that you do, we used this same example yesterday, like Jeff Bezos, he's super good at business, right? Like whether or not he needs a business coach or anything, I don't know. But if he wants to be good at fitness, right, he definitely needs to go find like a fitness coach. He's not going to be like the guy that can, just be that himself. And
so it's not necessarily Bezos, but I think Grant Cardone actually is a motivator for me. Mm-hmm. I don't really like him very much for multiple reasons. But he always tells this story. The first deal he ever did was he bought like a 10-unit building in California. He had to put like $350,000 down. So already I'm like, okay, well, you started with $350,000. You already started way better than everybody else. He bought it for he ended up exiting 2 years later and made over $1.5 million from that deal. And so it reminds me, well, okay, so you started your first deal, you made $1.5 million. My first deal, I lost $100,000. If I started where you were, I'd be doing pretty good too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but I mean the education though as its own piece, but I mean at some point though, I don't know what was your first big win, I guess, because you have your big loss, but typically to start scaling, um, you kind of have to go through like the small wins or the educational lessons, all that sort of stuff, until you find that first win, which
Right.
will ultimately come just from putting yourself in those positions, right?
Yeah.
And like even looking back at Dan and I can pinpoint when we were able to start scaling because we had our first super successful month. And then from there, we were able to set up our second month that was even bigger, that was like 3 or 4 months later. And then from there, it was like exponential growth. And I imagine you probably had something similar, or was it all just like grinding through and just, stacking up opportunities?
I would say I had two tiers of that happening, if you will. So the first one was the first big deal that we did that was land development as a wholesale. So there was a restaurant under an overpass, highway overpass in a town that my partner lived in, and it had failed at the board several times. In fact, the mayor of the town tried to permit it and she couldn't get anything done.
It's pretty bad.
And we looked at it and it was if you looked at the site with just grass on it, you would say you couldn't build a shed on this thing. Well, we got 2 condos permitted on it.
Nice.
And we brought the value up to the point where we sold the contract to another builder and made, I want to say, somewhere between 200 and 250 grand on it. And we never owned the property.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So all we did was it cost us like 30 grand in permitting for engineering and architectural plans, but we did all the board meetings. We did all the negotiating. We do most of our own board meetings ourselves because we just happen to be better than most engineers and attorneys. Anyway, we only bring attorneys if we really need them to bring the hammer down on somebody fighting us.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But that was the first huge win that we had, and we're like, oh my god, we got to do more of these things.
Yeah. And that was under an overpass.
Correct.
Dang. So people build condos underneath like a freeway, and they were able to sell those.
I mean, it was also across the street from the harbor, so
it's a popular spot.
Yeah.
Besides the actual overpass issue, it was in a good area.
We have like a fully renovated house on like a not really busy road, but like a slight arterial, and everyone's like, no.
Can't do it. Can't do it.
I guess the East Coast versus the West Coast.
Most towns around us, we wouldn't even consider that, but this particular town it worked for us. So that was, I think, the first tier where we were like, we have to focus on this kind of thing because to us it was very minimal risk because of everything that we did and such a high reward. And like I said, we never even owned the property.
Yeah, so is there something? Is there something unique within the Boston area, or something unique that you guys are doing that would make it so that? I mean, what I'm hearing is a big value add is your ability to get these zoning changes. What's the difference? That maybe I'm missing something here, but it sounds like that's an incredible skill of yours. And like, how do you do that? For many of our listeners, they probably don't even know what you're talking about.
Right. So I think it is unique to maybe Massachusetts and New Hampshire because places like Florida, Texas, you get 5 acres of land, you put together some plans and send it to the town and they say, okay. And that's basically it. And it is extremely difficult in Massachusetts to get through. I mean, we're permitting a site right now across the pond from where I live, and actually that's where I'm going to build my next house. And 3 single-family lots, A&R lots, which that's a Massachusetts term for approval not required. But this is going to take us 2 years.
Really?
Wow.
And probably $100,000.
Really?
Crazy. Yeah.
And so that's certainly not for everybody, but it's not just that. It's a site that was incredibly difficult. We got a lot of pushback because the town that we're in for that, just if it doesn't meet exact zoning code, don't bother asking for anything else. And even though it's actually a site where there's 8 or 9 small cottages and about tons of trash. There's a PT Cruiser with a tree in it.
Nice.
I mean, just the cleanup of the site could be $200,000.
Yeah.
And they want to fight you all the way on
So-
it, even though you're going to make it nice.
And they're fighting us the whole way on it. They, because we go in and most board members are like, well, they're developers. They're going to make $10 million
Right.
on this deal if they get it. So we're going to impose all these restrictions and covenants and extra stuff that you need to do. And it is really absurd and detrimental to the town. But, that's conversation
Another
for
day, yeah.
another time, I guess.
Yeah, right. No.
But yeah, I mean, we had actually the subdivision that we permitted a few years ago is where my business partner lives now.
Mhm.
So that was probably the most complicated one that we've done because there were 6 single-family house lots on 10 acres. Used to be a farm, and we only wanted to buy 4 of the lots because we wanted to make a little niche community. And it was farmland, so you have to go through this process called 61A, which turns agricultural land into residential land. And at any time they're in the process, the town where the land is can jump you and say, no, we want to buy that. And so you could spend $150,000 in engineering, and at the last second they can say, no, we're taking it.
Wow.
So we went through the process. We actually got a letter from the town ahead of time saying they would not do that. But that took a year and a half. And then towards the end, the town actually came to us and said, well, you've got 13 houses here. 2 of them are affordable. We'd like you to buy the last 2 lots from the seller. And they were $200,000 each. And we said, well, we don't need them and we don't really want them. And the town said, we really want you to get them. And we said, well, we'll buy one of them, but you have to give us 2 extra houses and you have to buy the other lot. And they did.
Really?
So at the closing, we had a tri-party agreement. At the closing, we bought 5 of the 6 lots, and the town bought one of the lots for us.
Wow, that's awesome.
And then we turned it into an OSRD, which stands for Open Space Residential Development. So we actually created the zone. And we created the zone so that in the 10 acres, you actually have to donate a portion of the lot back to the town to leave as open space. So the zoning that we created said that you have to donate 80% of the land back to the town as open space. Of course, we left out the part that 80% of the land was actually wetlands and we couldn't build on it anyway. So it didn't really matter to us.
Yeah.
So we put 15 houses in 2 acres.
Okay.
Oh, wow. In 2 acres,
Yeah.
man, those are... You're
2
shaking
acres.
hands with your neighbors, sticking out the window in those. Be real
Yes, you
tight.
are.
Yeah.
But you know what? When we started it, we thought the houses would be worth 700, 800,000 maybe. And they're not that big. They were like, between 1,800 and 2,500 square feet. And, when we closed on it, we sold it. We got a really good wholesale fee. My business partner was able to keep his lot for free. And then he built his house for less than $500,000. And he just redid his HELOC, and his appraisal was like 1.6
Oh, killer.
Yeah.
Nice deal.
That's amazing.
So-
And so you said you got a good wholesale fee. So you did all that without actually buying it, but you basically partnered with the developer and did
No, because this was in 2019,
Okay.
so at the time we were definitely not really set up to do things like a town road with all that kind of infrastructure with streetlights and hydrants and sidewalks, and we weren't set up for that at the time. So we actually wholesaled it to a bigger builder
Okay.
who did.
So do you put that under contract and then do all that, or are you just partnering up with the previous owner?
So our contracts generally state that it's based on the approvals that we want
Gotcha.
to get before we
Gotcha.
close.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So of course, if we're not going to get it, then you can't buy $1 million
Right.
lot and end up being able to build 2 houses on it. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we never close on any of our properties until we actually have a building permit.
Amazing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Smart.
So if you don't mind sharing, what do you typically make on a deal like that? Like versus like how much of your money goes into it, how much do you actually end up making at the end of it? Like, what's your total ROI?
That one, I think we made maybe 150 grand or so,
Okay.
but that was kind of our fault. We probably could have made more, but at the time it was like, most of our deals, it's like, oh, we'll try to wholesale it. And if we don't, we'll just close on it and do it. But this one, we weren't set up for that. So we were like, well, we kind of have to sell this one.
Yeah.
So, we, in some ways, took what we could get. We have another one. We actually sold it to the same builder that we got 2 single-family house lots by a mountain in New Hampshire. And we had that under agreement for $265. It cost us about 30 grand to do the permitting because, again, we just paid the engineer. We did all the meetings. And we were able to get 12 townhouses and a single-family house on those 2 single-family house lots. So we were into it for about $300,000 total. We sold it to a builder for $9.
Okay.
Wow.
So really great margin there.
That's huge. Yeah.
Not only did we sell it for $9, but my business partner is keeping one of the townhouses.
Wow.
Beautiful.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
Man, those are like, again, like, how did you learn to do all this? I guess you just like trial and error.
Well, I mean, when my partner started after he graduated, he actually worked for an architecture firm in Cambridge where his job was basically builders would come and say, I just bought 20 acres in this town. Tell me what I can do with it. So he just quickly learned how to decipher zoning code really, really well. And he knows that stuff like the back of his hand. To the point where actually just yesterday, we have a project in Boston right now where the architect was awful, absolutely awful, and was giving us a really evil kind of smirk. Like he had us dead to rights on these 2 issues with setbacks. And my partner went in and we went above his head to his boss, and his boss brought him and the architect in, and my business partner, shall we say, very animatedly explained what the issue was. And the big boss had to agree with my partner because he was right.
Yeah.
So the actual architect was in some deep shit because he cost us a good bit of money.
Really?
Wow.
And at the end, we told him, my partner actually legitimately told him, I don't want to hear anything from you except for yes, sir. And if I give you something that needs to change, the answer is yes, sir. And I want it that day. And he's like, and before he left, he stared at the guy until he said, yes, sir.
Oh my God. I love it. Oh, that is amazing. Mike, from now on, all I want you to do is address me as sir.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, bro. We don't have that kind of relationship.
It's funny. Both of us have separately had a few of our properties on TV shows.
Oh, really?
Before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There used to be a show local to us called Flipping Boston. And my partner had one of his properties on it. Actually, the first deal I did, one of those condos was on Beachfront Bargain Hunt. And that's how we know they're all completely fake.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Oh, yeah. Mine, in fact, they didn't film it until 6 months after they bought it.
Oh.
And these people, this particular unit, we had it under agreement kind of early on. So they picked like the countertops and the lighting and stuff like that. And I'm watching the show with my family, and I got really heated because they called the development something different. They just made it up. The purchase price was wrong. The other 2 houses that they looked at just happened to be on MLS at the time. They had obviously no intention. And then they come through. My property was the last one, and they came through, and they were like, the wife was like, "This one is beautiful. Like we love it. Like I love how they set up the staging with the furniture. Look how nice that couch is." And I'm like screaming at my TV. I'm like, "That's your couch."
This is great inside information here. I did not know this. This is, oh my God, that's your couch.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God. That's awesome. So I mean, you couldn't come up doing some complex stuff in a short period of time. Like, do you keep a lot of stuff too, or like, what does your total portfolio look like right now?
We have a portfolio of like 4 to 10 unit buildings, maybe 40 units total or so. And then, I was going to get to the tier 2 of our kind of leveling ourselves up. We had a project in Newton outside of Boston, and a realtor called me because he wanted to list it, even though I already had an agent. And he asked me, well, what else are you looking for? And I said, big multifamilies. And he said, okay, well, off market, I have this 47 unit building in Worcester, which is about 25 miles west of Boston. And we looked at it. It looked like a decent deal. He wanted 5.5 million. I said, it's worth more like 4.8 million. So we didn't do it. And 3 months later, President Biden said, this is when President Biden said, I might be getting rid of 1031 exchanges. If you remember that. So that day, he cold called me and said, if you can close in 3 weeks, then we'll do 4.8.
Beautiful.
So I had to call a hard money lender, a friend of mine, and I said, I need $4 million in 3 weeks. And he said, send it, let's do it. So we actually bought that in 3 weeks.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's great.
And we are still finishing the renovation there, in the process of actually potentially exiting that one. So the funny thing was, so we got that. I immediately walked into a lot of equity in that one. And during the inspection of that property, the same realtor said, hey, do you guys want to buy an 11-unit building in it was Rochester, New Hampshire, which is upstate New Hampshire? And we said, yeah, we already have buildings there. How much does he want? And he showed us the text messages of the seller that said, I'd like to list it for $795, but I would take as low as $720. So my partner and I at the same time said, we'll do $720. Yeah. we got it under agreement at the inspection of the Worcester building. That was the easiest deal we've ever done in our lives.
That's crazy.
And we, between those two buildings, we walked into over $1 million in equity.
It's amazing.
That is really cool.
Yeah, but all having those good connections and then putting yourself out there to even be in those situations, right? Like,
right.
That is.
So that was kind of like the second tier of leveling up, and that was the first one. That Worcester building, that was 47 units. 2 months later, we bought an 11-unit mixed unit building, and then right after that, we did 2 other syndications, 107 unit portfolio by the Lakes region in New Hampshire, 90 units in Fitchburg, which is like central Massachusetts, and also another big 36 unit building. And those all of that happened within about a year and a half.
That's really quick. That's interesting.
A huge period of time.
So we grew exponentially in a very short period of time. So it was obviously, I bring that up because obviously that's, not the easiest thing to just figure out how that scales appropriately.
It's challenging.
We're handling it, but it's been pretty challenging. And, you deal with other ancillary issues, tenant issues, contractor issues, things like that. But we're handling it, and we're actually growing even more since then. So we were able to tackle that without too much of an issue.
Yeah.
And that's because of the partners that we have. And, each of those properties, there's more, but mainly 5 general partners. And each of us 5 general partners each had our own, like we have an operations associate. My other partner has a full-time assistant plus a full-time bookkeeper plus a full-time contractor. 2 months later, we hired a project manager. So we were all kind of growing at the same time to the point where now we have a really good back-end team for operations. So now we're kind of scaling to the point where now we need to figure out, okay, well, I've gone from me and my business partner to, kind of like you guys, like just figuring out a little bit, making a bunch of money, but not having the look of like a corporate entity, I guess.
Yep.
And so now I'm trying to learn how to be more of like a CEO type of person, and because I've got to learn how to manage people more so than I have in the past. And I, I've it's things like this where it's like, could I take an exam on quantum mechanics? No, but if you gave me 6 months to study it, I'd probably still fail that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, of course.
Like being a business leader, if all that takes is me educating myself how to do it the right way and learn from other people who are doing it the right way, like I can do that.
Just copy other people, right?
Right. If it's a question of effort, like to me, that's like a no-brainer. Like, okay, well, to my mind, it's already done because I know I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just the power of momentum too. And like sort of as you get better experience and better practice with everything, I think it makes it more possible to do that. Awesome. Well, awesome, Damon. You've done incredible amount of stuff. Come so quickly. That's super cool. So we have a couple questions we always finish with. One of them you already answered where you said the tip you give to somebody that was starting up, just taking action. I think that's super, super relevant. So let's jump into the second question, which is always the crowd favorite, which is what is your craziest real estate investing story? And this can be a big win. This can be a crazy loss. A guy the other day told us about how he found a body in like a porta potty, like whatever you got, your craziest real estate investing story.
Wow. No dead body.
Good for you.
Yeah, just a few. I don't know. A lot of actually, I brought up, I was thinking about the being on TV thing because a while ago, I can't remember if it was Bravo or HGTV wanted to film people building a modern farmhouse in our area. And that's what we build is mostly modern farmhouses for spec builds. And I had a producer talk to me for a while, and they actually told us they thought we had too much drama
for TV.
And I was like, all you guys do is edit for more drama that's not even there. Yeah. And you're telling us we have too much.
They wanted the Chip and Joanna Gaines, effect.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't want you there yelling at the contractor saying, "No, you only call me sir." That just makes people uncomfortable.
I will tell you that I have many stories similar to that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Which is kind of funny because if you ever meet my business partner, nicest guy in the world, you would never think he would ever even have the ability to raise his voice. And I can't tell you how many people now are so afraid of him.
Yeah.
Because not only is he right the vast majority of the time, he will let you know when you're wrong.
Yeah. Well, especially if you're having to deal with the government, that pisses everybody off.
Oh, God. Yeah. But
yeah, I mean, it's not just the government, but we've had, it's I've actually been sued by some of those ambulance chaser lawyers. Like I don't want to name them now, but you've seen the commercial. They're all the same kind of guy, and it almost like brings me joy because I can't wait to call these guys back and put them in their place.
Yeah, right.
and I've done that several times.
Yeah,
several times.
Yeah.
To guys who just like I think it's funny when a lot of guys try to kind of big time us, like my shit don't stink, and I'm gonna make you like bow down to me, and it just does not go down like that.
That's awesome.
Because we've had several like celebrities do that. We've actually sold a house to an NHL player. We've had people try to big time us about. We're actually building a real estate app right now, which would be kind of a off-market marketplace for wholesale deals with education, deal analyzers, rehab estimators. A really good product for fix and flip.
Cool.
And buy and hold investors.
Yeah, cool.
And we're in the process of that.
Sweet. What's that going to be called?
The name of it's Flip Trader.
Interesting. Flip Trader.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're in the process. I actually partnered up with another GoBundance member who's going to help us develop.
Oh, that's great.
Awesome.
So it's been a brainchild for a few years now because we had some roadblocks with two previous developers who just weren't cutting it for us, and I think we're finally in a place where we're going to be able to get it to market, and it's going to be, obviously we're biased, but we think it's going to be a game changer in the world of real estate investment, because there's a lot of other companies like PropStream and Open Door, or not Open Door. There's a bunch that all do kind of 1, 2, maybe 3 facets of what is helpful, but nobody does everything that we're going to be doing. And I really think it's going to be a game changer in the world of being not just for current investors, but people who are just on that edge, who have been members of Bigger Pockets for years, but still have never done a deal. Those kind of people. It'll be a really good education and benefit to them.
Great.
Awesome, man.
Look forward to seeing that thing.
Yeah, you're doing it all. Like it from poker player to, massive losses to now doing luxury spec builds, now doing, application development. You got your fingers in everything.
Got the hustle, true entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of hours in the day.
Yeah, that's true. Cool. So where can people find you or follow you if you want people to do that? If you don't want anyone to follow you either, that's fine. But if people did.
Our main company is Down East Residential, so it's downeastresidential.com. So you can just find general information, see pictures of a lot of the houses that we've built in the past, so that you can kind of get a sense for what we do. We also I got to get better at putting our current deals on that website, so people know what land development deals we're in the process of doing, in case they want to potentially buy one off of us. And then I actually also have, we have a Facebook group for Flip Trader. Actually, if you just search for Flip Trader, that should come up. There's I think there's 26,000 people in that group now at this point. Oh, wow. And then we also have a smaller local Facebook group for real estate investors called Recap Investment Group. Because I used to actually host a live real estate investment meetup before the pandemic. So I'd like to get back into that at some point when I have some time. But those are the main groups that I interact in, and there's plenty of contact info on our website to kind of find us and see what we do, and always putting together deals and raising money for deals. That's part of what I'm focusing on right now.
Yeah. Perfect. I love it, man. So, well, awesome, Damon. You're definitely an inspiration on what's possible if you get down and start taking some risks. So we appreciate you hopping on. And guys, if you want to reach out to Damon, give you a bunch of ways you can do so. We're definitely going to be keeping track, especially of this Flip Trader application that you're building. Aside from that, guys, thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Thanks, Damon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out at collectingkeyspodcast.com for tips and guides on starting your own real estate investment and wholesaling business.